Okay, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you so much for joining the this week of seminars. I'm Saman, project manager at Trainix Hub. So today we are going to talk about multifamily building construction. We have invited one of our brilliant experts in our industry, Mr. Arshia Shirazi. Thank you so much for accepting our invitation for this week of seminars. So very quickly, for those of you who are not familiar with Trainix is a professional training hub focusing on real estate topics. So we offer courses, online courses, in-person workshops, seminars like today, and webinars. So our program is focusing on real estate development topics, encouraging, actually supporting property owners, investors, builders, and developers to navigate any potential investments or redevelopments for their land across the GTA. Today with us is Mr. Arshia Shirazi. So Arshia has been in our industry over 20 years. So his expertise is around real estate investments and also equity, let's say private equity and financing solutions for investors and property owners across the Ontario. So he was very kind enough, although he's a little bit sick, but accepted our invitations. And we are very privileged that have him today. So without further ado, I will pass to Asha to start your presentation. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much for introductions. Thank you, everybody, for your times and opportunity. Especially thanks to Phoenix for this opportunity. It's a pleasure to be here. So today, because I wasn't so sure about the audience and then the exact audience, if they're investors, savvy investors, or basically they are basically new to the investment and to the industry. We're talking mostly about concepts of investments in general, and hopefully in near futures we can go more in depth with analyzing the cases and then the buildings and how we can proceed with actual investment. So why multifamily real estate? So basically, when we have basically two general real estate investment. One is residential, and the other one's commercial. When we step into the commercial space, multifamily is going to be very similar to some extent to the residential. So those who have invested in residential single houses are much easier for them to basically, if they want to expand their portfolio, to step into the commercial and start with multifamily real estate. So this is mostly in comparison between multifamily and a single family investment in general. So we in multifamily we have more steady and positive cash flow in compared to a single family. We have basically the main focus of these discussions today is this one. In multifamily we have both equity appreciation because of the market and forced appreciation that we're going to discuss a little later. This is pretty much mostly we have the forced appreciation in commercial assets, but especially it's very lucrative with multifamily. Asset diversification and risk management. So in multifamily, when we are talking about diversification, there is two aspects of it. One is basically diversification of the type of investment. If you are real estate, so it's better to have diversify and have different asset class in your portfolio in a single family, multifamily, plaza, different types of real estate. But here, by diversification and risk management, I mean that, for example, when we compare it with the single family, with single family, if you lose, for example, your tenants, if tenants doesn't pay you, you lose 100% of your income. While in multifamily, let's say if you have 10 units and two of them are problematic, then still you have that cash flow. So it's better you can manage the risk and you can manage your cash flow much better. And also the multifamily, like I said, you can build a wealth through multifamily. This is you're going to get to know the approaches during this presentation, and it's a business opportunity. Unlike any other asset class, this one can be a business opportunity too. So it's a real estate plus business opportunity that we're going to discuss today. That's from I would say macroeconomy for the from the business point of view, from the macroeconomy and from the market. So we have basically we are experiencing population growth in long term, maybe in short terms where there is a little bit of interruptions, but in long term we have the population growth. Canada is an basically an immigration countries that we know of that there might be a little bit slower right now, but eventually we're gonna have Canada has to be increase their immigrations and then gonna go back to normal. So lack of housing supply is a major issue. Even right now, even as we speak, because the market is a little bit slower and on the sideway. So, but still we have a housing supply, and because of the inflation pressures, the affordability and purchasing the house is going to be tough for the buyers. So there is always needs for rental properties.
For you. You try.
Before we jump into the core presentation, I just want to basically just give you a few facts, few numbers, and the way that that makes the commercial investment different from residential. Basically, in commercial, all commercial properties, valuations, the valuation and the value of the property is based on the income that it generates. So it has a direct relationship with the income. So the higher is the income, the higher is going to be the value of the property. So from there, that relationship is called cap rate. So that shows what's the relationship between the net income after net operating income after all expenses, and then the value of the property. So it's very simple formula. The cap rate is net income divided by value, or you can get the value by dividing net income by cap rates. The cap rates has for different region and different area has some standards that there is a report that's called come out, for example, by Colliers every quarter, so you can check the cap rate for each area for different properties, different asset class. But simply for multifamily, the cap rates, I mean, the normal cap rates falls behind somewhere between 4.5% to 5.5% to 6%. Is a healthy investment if we get the cap rates within that range. So the way that basically we look at it is just, for example, at the cap rate of 4%, if the income is 120,000, so the value is going to be $3 million. But if 10,000, we have 10,000 increase on the income by to 130,000, the value is going to be 3,250,000. So it means that just the 10,000 increments on the value, on the income, that's going to give you 250,000. By cap rate of 5, it's going to be around $200,000. Yeah, go ahead.
One question, just for more clarification to everybody. This is the key point when we have 10,000 within 1 year, because the net income, net operating income is annual basis. It's mean every month, if you have more improvement on your rental, for example, income, just for $800, in a year should be 10,000.
Yeah.
It's back to $50,000. The value of your properties goes up. It shows the importance of the rental, and accuracy on the rental numbers, in these cases.
So if you have just 10 units, and let's say you can increase $100 for each It's rent that we're going to look at how we can increase it. So it's going to be $1,000 a month. It's going to be 12,000 a year, and that's about $200,000 appreciation on the value. That's simple. So that's the beauty of investment in multifamily and in commercial. It's just you can, and that's where the opportunity basically exists, and we're tapping on this opportunity.
And the other question, the cap rate in today's market, that the market is slow, the cap rate for the multifamily goes up or down?
It goes down because the values are lower, and then the rent is dropped too. So the rent drops a little bit. So right now the cap rate is around 4.5%, 4.3, 4.5. That's still it's on the healthy range. So, and plus always remember, real estate is a long-term investment. It's not something that you can just go in and out. So back to for even for the mortgage, and when it comes to the mortgage and financing for the commercial and multifamily, so they go only by net income of the property. They weight on the personal income, and personal basically income is minimal. It's very is at least rate on the for the approval. So they look at the personal from the credit aspects of the owners, and also their net worth, how much asset they have in case they want to inject money into business. Other than that, they just go purely based on the net income, net operating income. And that net operating income, the minimum, I mean, that base case scenario has to be at this 1.1% of your financing costs. So if let's say all financing costs is 100,000, your net income has to be at least 110,000. That's the best case scenario for the top tier financing. So we're going to discuss that later too. Just quickly, when we call multifamily, and when it has to be commercial, when we're dealing with a commercial multifamily, it has to be 5 units and above. And there is when it's basically few units, under 6 units, they call it multiplex, but above 6 units, it's going to be multifamily. The reason that we have that category, we're going to discuss. There is some benefit about, I mean, when it comes to the constructions and development charges and that kind of stuff, they look at it differently. But overall, the 5 units and above is going to be commercial, and it's going to basically they consider it as commercial, and then the underwriting is going to be based on the income of the property. Less than 5, it's going to be personal. Again, it's going to be just like a single family when you want to get a mortgage. That's another beauty of the multifamily. So that being said, now we're going to categorize different approaches, different strategies to invest in multifamily. They're very straightforward. That begins with just buying a multifamily, 5, 10, 20 unit buildings, and just manage it and hold it for a long term. So, and you can enjoy the cash flow, and down the road, it's going to be the market appreciations to help you to keep it. So, the good things about multifamily again is that it has two benefits. One, you have the capital gain, and you have the cash flow too. Usually depends on the loan to value and the amount of mortgage that you have, but usually it has a positive cash flow in compared to the single family. So that's very straightforward, the first one. The second one is basically what we call it in residential is flipping. Basically, they buy it, they add value to the property, either by renovating it, either by changing that. We're going to discuss how you can basically add value to increase the income. So then repositioning it in a better basically situation, and then they sell it out. They sell it. So it's just basically it's a flipping. It's flipping. So buy it, improve it, and sell it. So some people, some investors don't like to go through the hassle of dealing with tenants or keeping in long term. So they are just in a renovation part of it, in the construction part of it. The other ones, that's again main focus of this presentation, is called investment plus a business model. The reason expression for this model is called BEAR, that we call it, that we discuss it. So basically, you buy, you improve it, and then you increase the value, and then you refinance, and you take the equity out, and then you repeat the process again. So basically you build a portfolio down the road with that. The other one is build and disposition. So basically, there are some builders and developers that they just build the unit, the whole multifamily buildings, and they sell it as a building. They don't deal with it's not like condo that they have to deal with a single unit. So it's the whole. So you build it from scratch and then you sell it, dispositioning it. And the last one is going to be the combination of all of the above. So you build from scratch, you keep it, you manage it, and then you improve it, and then you repeat the same process. So we're going to look at the strategy number 2 and 3 are very similar, and 4 and 5 are very similar. So we're going to discuss it together. Strategy 2 and 3, what I call it is called improve it like a production line. What I mean by production line? So this is a business model, and it's been doing everybody. I mean, the investors are doing this for. It's been proven. It's been doing it done for so many years, and basically you buy the property, acquire the property. The property that you buy has to have some characteristic specification. It has to be what we call it underperform. The property, there's a potential to upscale it. We discuss what we mean by upscaling. So when you buy an underperformed property, then you enhance it. You either enhance the property, your capital, you improve it by different strategy that we discuss later, or you reduce their costs. Let's say by energy saving, by the different. So anything that any of these basically operations that you've done on the property, it's gonna be the bottom line is that the value, the income is gonna go up. As soon as the income is gonna go up, we have the forced appreciation. So then you create equity on the property, and then you can refinance it, take the equity out, and repeat the process. That's why it's called buy, reno, rent, refinance, and repeat, and which is it stands for BEAR. Yeah. So it's called BEAR. Buy, reno, rent, refinance, and repeat.
And the idea is that, for example, have a little more old multifamily, purchase that one, just do renovation, improve some energy efficiency, electricity, or whatever, in terms of that they can reduce the cost. Then they can bring it up the value of the rent for each unit. Technically, the NOIs go up, the value of the properties go up, then we can refinance, cash out. Yeah. Cash out, repeat the process.
Yeah. Exactly. So when we say the property has to be underperformed and it has improvability, what do we mean by that? Either we can do something on the building, the property. Either it could be a minor cosmetic, renovation, all the way to remodeling it, open concepts. You make it condo look like the property. They put in-suite laundry, accessibility to the disabled and that kind of stuff. You can have elevators, you can have new amenities, landscaping, anything of that source. So that basically, let's look at it as a product that reposition your products in the market differently. So you basically can improve your products. It's like products when you are packaging it differently. So for income, you can increase rent. So when you are doing some sort of improvability, then you can increase the rent. Or sometimes there are old tenants that you can somehow get rid of them and then replace them with a new market rent. Decreasing vacancy. Vacancy is an issues that basically those who are doing the property management, they try to basically address this one and they try to control this one because right now, I mean, in 2021, 22, and even to 23, the vacancy dropped to 1.5%. It was, we had a very hot market for rentals and everything. But right now it's around 3 to 5%. So when you go to bank for financing, they have an index, they have consider 5% or 4%, depends on the banks. They consider 4% of vacancy for calculation. Improving the conversion rate. The conversion rate means that when they are basically they acquiring a tenant, so they basically use a system or they use a property management somehow that when they see the potential tenants, they can convert it to the tenants much more faster. So again, that's going to reduce the vacancy too. And then the next one is minimizing cost inefficiency. So the cost, obviously, we can control the cost. One of the biggest one is controlling the energy saving, and then working towards reduce the carbon print, and which is more environmental friendly, and at the same time you are reducing the cost. And then all of these activities basically is going to be translate to income, increasing the income of the property. So when our clients comes to us and we want to analyze and underwriting a building, we are considering all of these items, and basically this is how we evaluate them based on location, the market rent, average in the area. We check all of them. We do that all during our due diligence. We basically go through all of this to make sure that this buildings basically is justifiable and is feasible for investment. Population and demography of the area is very important. The type of tenants that you get, as is value versus as is the maintenance cost versus as if maintenance cost. So let's say the maintenance cost right now is 10,000, but after you are improving it, obviously it's going to be dropped to 5,000. So you have to that's pays you off because not everything is brand new. Right? You change everything. So you at this for next 2-3 years, you don't need to do a lot of maintenance. So your saving is there. Age of the building is important, as is income versus as if income, the future income after improvement. Price per unit is very important. In each area, the price per units, we have indexes in each area that we know what's the average of the price per unit, for example, in Sudbury versus in Niagara Falls. So they are very important. Capital required for both down payment and renovation and that kind of stuff is something that we have to consider. Debt service coverage ratio, the DSCR that we discussed. So this is very important for us to be able to see that the incomes basically cover the financing debt. Cap rate obviously is one of the factors. As is value versus as if value, the future value, renovation costs and vacancy costs. So all of this is going to be in our reports when we underwriting a multifamily building. So it comes to the financing options. As for this business model, as we mentioned that we have to find the underperformed products, underperformed building. So obviously, when it's underperformed, you cannot go right away to the bank, to the prime lenders. So it has to be basically your lenders. We have to use the different tiers, different lenders in different stage of basically work. It's kind of evolving process. So probably at the beginning we might have to go with a private lender to use it as a bridge financing. So the bridge financing comes in because the DSCR is not there, because the income is not there. So that you get a bridge financing, which might be 6 to 2 years, depends on what you need to do and what is the status of the building. And after, so the bridge financing, so obviously it's going to be the private, it's going to be higher the rates, it's going to be the lower the down payment, lower the loan to value. Excuse me. Uh, and as we go, as we evolve, as we start basically a stabilization, stabilizing is one of the basically is our target, our goal in multifamily. So we want to get to some points that stabilize like income. We have a stabilized like, so then we can switch to conventional financing with 75% loan to value through the banks, major banks. If we improve it further, we can go to CMHC, for example, CMHC standard, which can go up to 85% loan to value, and 85% loan to value of the new value, not the value that you purchase it. So that's where you take the equity out. So because now it's changed, the values as we go, the values change, and eventually you can go to MLI cell next, which we're going to go look at it in more detail. So basically, when I call production line, it's going to look like this. So at the beginning, so the whole process is going through the force appreciation. So improving any of this. And let's say you purchase it at $4 million. These numbers are hypothetical. When you go with the private lenders, 6 to 24 months, short term, and it's going to be the rate's going to be between 8 to 12%. And like I said, the loan to value is going to be between 60 to 70%, 75%, depends on situation. But after that, when you've done improvement, the value is going to go to 5.5, and then you take it to the conventional mortgage, 75% loan to value. The rate's going to be between 5 to 7%. 25% basically is going to be down payment or equity in the property, and it can go between 3 years to 10 years term, and eventually you can take advantage of CMHC programs, which can go up to even 95% loan to value if it justified. And there are some criteria that we're going to look at it next 6 slides. Basically, you can go to 95%. The rate right now is around 4%. There is a premium involved. You have to pay premium for the insurance, and it can go to 5 to 15 years term. And this is good if, especially, you want to keep it for a longer time, for longer terms, longer periods. So that's basically how you create wealth and how you create equity. So eventually it's come to, let's say, $6 million, $7 million. As you go, as you improve it, it's going to be basically, you take the equity out. And if you want, you can repeat and invest in the next building. So there is a couple of examples here in Hamilton. We work with the clients. So when they purchase it for 1.7 million. The gross income was 71,000, and the net income was 44,000. So at that time the cap rate was 2.6. It was very low. And then they basically the building was in a good shape. They didn't do much, but basically they just did a little bit of cosmetics. But the tenants were some old tenants, so they could get rid of them. And then they just by increasing to the market rent, their incomes goes up to 127, and the net was 97,000. and the value based on the cap rate of, that times was 4.1. So cap rate was 2.3. So the values goes up to 2.3. And then we refinance it based on 2.3.
How much cost they get to renovation or improvement?
I don't have that details at Kilheim, but like I said, they didn't do the crazy renovations or and then mostly they within it was about a year and a half that they could replace some tenants and get rid of the old tenants and
They changed.
they changed just the tenants and then
Why the cap rate was 2.64 to
but it was very low. The incomes like most of them were old tenants. Their income was very low.
But then the cap rate is low, the values goes up.
The cap rate the value is lower, the income was lower, so the cap was very low. If you divide it, the net income, you can check. If you divide the net income by the value, you're gonna get 2.64. The net income 44 divided by 1.699. Another one was in Oshawa. This one has a couple vacancies and also they improve it, they change it and the income from 195 goes up to 214. Not a big difference here. They just rent out a couple of vacants and it goes up by about 400,000 based on the cap rate 4.9. That brings us to the next strategy for the fourth and fifth type of investments, which is mostly constructions and starting from scratch. So why constructions of multifamily? Obviously, we are in a basically time that the governments are trying to push more investors into the multifamily, so they are giving the investments and they lower the development fees. I think on the multiplex up to six units, they basically rate them development fee that structure works better on the construction part. So the cost is very cost effective. You don't need obviously to do the pre-sale. You don't like selling a condo, so you don't have to go to pre-sale. And the financing is much more easier than financing for building a condo. So it's just comparing a multifamily with a condo building, with the developments of a condo. This is the comparison between that. So as we discussed, this is a long-term wealth creation through the process that we just discussed. Property management business. So it's going to come with a property management business if someone is interested after they're building it, so they can start a property management business too. Asset appreciation, as we discussed, we have both market appreciation based on as the time goes by, we have appreciation on the market and the force appreciation that we discussed. It's always there. Flexible exit strategy. So if you want to sell it, it's much more easier to sell a building rather than just selling unit by unit and it's less hassles. And obviously it has a higher and long terms better ROI and IRR because not only, like I said, you are enjoying the market appreciation and equity, you are enjoying the cash flow too. So an average in condo, you get 12 to 16% ROI, but in multifamily, 16 to 22%. That's according to ChatGPT. The financing for multifamily basically is usually it's just like any other construction. It's based on the end value of the property. So either you go through the CMHC or a private lenders, they get appraisers, and it's gonna based on projections of the end value. And the end value is calculated based on the the potential income that it's gonna generate. So, based on that end value, it's gonna be the cost of the cost, the cost of constructions, and you can go up to 75%, with private. With the CMHC, you can go up to 95% of the construction costs, loan to cost. But there are, if you want to go with the basically CMHC, there is some criteria that we're going to discuss again. Energy efficiency, accessibility, rental affordability, benefit. If we can meet all those criteria, we can go up to 95% loan to cost for construction, and then later on 95% loan to value upon completion for the mortgage. So, with CMHC, obviously the interest, interest is very competitive. The first 2 to 3 years on the construction site, it's gonna be interest only. And after the project's finished, that loan that you have, the construction loans, is gonna be switched to a regular mortgage, amortized mortgage, that based on the criteria that you met, it can go up from 40 years to 50 years, from 35 years to 50 years, amortization, it can go. Like we said, competitive interest rate, conversion to long-term mortgage, as we discussed, and it can go up to 50 years amortization. How? Basically, CMHC offers two different products. There is a misconceptions in the market that they think that CMHC is giving the money. No, CMHC is not giving the money. Money goes through about four different institutions are taking care of that CMHC. They're working with CMHC. Not even major banks offer these products. There are four different institutions that we work with that they offer this product. But CMHC is just insurance company. Insurance company means that CMHC is it's like the first time home buyers on residential side, that CMHC is a kind of guarantor. They tell to the bank that, okay, conventionally you have to put 20% down in order to be able to get a mortgage. But when CMHC kicked in, they said, okay, let the buyers put less down, and we're gonna take care of that. If anything happens to you, Mr. Bank, if the borrowers default, we're gonna take care of that. You don't need to be worried about it. And it's insurance, not a kind of insurance. It's insurance. It's insurance for the bank, for the lender. That's why when they have the CMHC on their back, they are more comfortable, and that's why their risk is going to be lower and the rate is going to be lower. But on the other side of it, CMHC is going to charge the borrower a premium for that insurance. It's just like any other insurance, you have to pay the premium. So this is the same case too. So when we say CMHC, we don't mean that we get the money from the CMHC. CMHC is just insured financing. And CMHC offers two programs. One is called CMHC Standard, which is up to 85%, 25 years to 40 years amortization, and they get a standard premium. Application is less complicated than the other program. And approval time obviously is faster, and they just go based on the net income. There is not crazy criteria there, versus the CMHC MLI Select. MLI Select, and here the DSCR, that I mentioned, that it has to be minimum 1.1. In the best case scenario, that's for MLI Select. For this one, it has to be 1.2, 1.3. So that 110,000 income that I mentioned, for this one, it has to be 120, 130,000. 130,000. So For MLI Select, basically, there are three, in order to be able to get the MLI Select, there are three main criteria. This is three main criteria, means that there are other criteria. So one is affordability, meaning that the certain number of the units has to be 30%, basically not more than 30% of the household income of the area. There is an basically there is a schedule in CMSC website. You can find it for each area. They have a schedule that, for example, in Richmond Hill, Ontario, or in Northfield, Ontario, what is the average income? It's $100,000 income. So the rent shouldn't be more than 30% of the income. More than 30,000 annual rent. It shouldn't be more than 30,000 of the household income of the that area. So that's, and then a certain number of that units has to be there to be able to get. It's based on a scoring system. You get points for each of them. So that scores add up, and then based on that scores, you can they determine that the loan to value, they determine the rates and the premium for the CMST and amortization. So then the next one is energy efficiency. So they have certain code that you can meet that when it's building or you are renovating an existing property, you have to meet those code so that energy efficiencies should be there. If it's there, you get the point for that. Accessibility for the disabled. If you have elevators, if you have there are again some structural codes. Again, doctor can comment on that. Basically, that if you meet that structure, for example, the size of the entrance, the door, the washroom entrance, everything that should be suitable for the wheelchair. That kind of goals. If you can meet those one, then you get points for that too. And everything's add up. If you get the points of 50 points, you go up to 40 years amortization. 70 points, you go up to 45 years amortization. 100 points, you go up to 50 years amortization, 95% loan to value. That being said, still we have to justify. You have to basically have both financial model. Sometimes it's good to go with 95%, but you have to, these are costs. Energy efficiency, accessibility, all of them are costs. So you have to weigh it, see which one is better. Sometimes better to not to go with this and go with 85% and not to have, I mean, the premium here, if you get, I mean, based on the points, you get discount on the premium, on the insurance premium for CMAC. That's another advantage of.
Back to your point for the accessibility, there is a criteria between 15% to 25% of the unit should be accessible to. It means at least, for example, if you have it, for example, 5 units, 1 unit should be fully accessible. It's made for people, they can go for the washroom, they can open the door, the distance between everything from the cabinet, between the size of the cabinet and the wall, everything should be improved. And also the signage. You have to provide the braille, language in terms of they can understand how they can go for that unit. Definitely it's a cost, but the CMAC they can stop.
You have to give up on square footage because you have to get everything's going to be wider and bigger. So basically, let's say if you want to meet that, if there's, let's say it's 10 units, then because you want to meet the accessibility, it's going to be 8. Then you ended up to build 8 units. So you're losing 2 incomes there, but you get longer amortization and lower rate and that. So that's why I always say that we have to basically.
Sometimes you should provide elevator, for example.
Elevator is very costly.
Yeah.
For example, these are some small items that you have to see in your financials, in your due diligence before you want, because everybody's when they hear that it's 95% loan to value, they say, "Oh wow, nice, I have 5%," and then it's not. There is another issues that we are dealing with our investors, that's the biggest, basically, roadblock is on top of all these criteria. When you go to CMSC wants to see you have 25% of whatever is the loan amount, 25% net worth, which 10 to 15% of that has to be cash. I mean, on your personal side, you have to have that net worth in order to be able to go to MLI Select or any of those CMSC program. That's one of the another criteria. That's we always see people have down payment, they have money for renovation, they have everything, and they're gonna say, okay, we're gonna do the energy. Energy efficiency is the easiest one, fastest one to meet. And they're gonna say that, okay, we're gonna get at least 50 points, and we are okay with 40 years amortization. But when it comes to the financing, they don't have that net worth. The net worth can be real estate investment, anything else, the equity that you have in the other properties, including the down payments that you have here, the equity that you have on that property. That's considered as part of your net worth too. I'm just gonna touch upon other alternative financing options just very quickly. I believe that this is the discussion for next week that we have for presentation next week. Basically, this is whatever we discussed so far was debt financing. This is equity financing. So like I said, when you need to come up with a down payment or that net worth and that kind of stuff, that money, sometimes you have to raise money. Sometimes you have to have partner, and you have to give up on some part of your equity in return. The way that the legal structures that you can do that, either if you have it depends on the size of the projects. If it's smaller projects, you can simply have a corporation and you can sell the share of the corporation. You can have a shareholders and 1, 2, 3, or as many as you want, and that's that way you can raise money. If it's a bigger projects, you can go with the LPGP limited partnership. That's very common in developments and in constructions industry. Like I said, next week's I guess the presenter is going to take you through all these details. It's not my expertise. It's just I want to touch on this. And REIT is the real estate investment trust, the trust company. That's really a specific structures designed for development, multifamily, and real estate. Basically, it's a trust, and then you are selling the unit of the trust. It's like share, but it's different structure. And then basically, the investors are going to be the unit holder. And usually you have to pay them interest on quarterly or monthly or annual interest plus capital gain at the end of the project completions. This is some things I guess that you guys deal with it more often. So, that being said, basically we would be more than happy to partner up with you guys, with all investors here at Trainix and DevNex. They have expertise. We have in-house expertise that they can take care of all construction aspects of that. And I would be more than happy to help you with your financing. So feel free to contact us and then discuss your project with us. And if you have any questions, I will be more than happy to answer.
Right on the time. Thank you so much. So I'll open the session to any questions from online participants and from participants in the room. So we have one question from Reza. So how can the cap rate for a specific property category, like retail, industrial, multifamily, be calculated using the information available from Colliers or CBRE?
How to calculate it or how to get it?
So
How to get the cap rate?
how to be
If
calculated?
you just Google Colliers cap rate, every quarters they have basically the reports. They publish their reports about the cap rates of different region and different area. and then and as soon as you have the net income of any building, any commercial building, if there is this plaza, restaurant, office, whatever it is, we have to get that information, and as soon as we have that information, you can simply calculate it using the formula that I had on the presentation.
Because the calculation is super difficult. Is many factors come to, you know,
The cap rate
cap rate.
calculation, and
Not just the same as NOI divided to the real cap rate is based on the market, you know, and the future risk.
I believe that they use the aggregated average in the area. Based on that, they go based on that. Whatever is sold and whatever is the income of the area and the rent income for each area.
So feel free to open your mic or raise your hand if you have any questions or write it in the chat box.
I have one question, you know.
Sure.
For today market, are you still recommending, you know, investing on the multifamily, multiplex multifamily, any kind of?
Like I said, it's always we have to look at the real estate as a long-term investment. It's not something short in and out. If you want to go after short investments, you better off to do the day trade, the stock market. But I mean, in long term, I believe the demand is out there. It's just started. This is we had a lot of shortage, and then there've been years and years that no multifamily built in, at least in Toronto and in Ontario. Everything, if you look at all those rental buildings are old buildings. We don't just recently in last 2 years we see some new buildings add up, but it's not there. The rental buildings still there is a shortage, I believe, and I think in long term, plus all those benefits that we have, regardless of market performance, we always have that force appreciation there. So even if the market doesn't perform or it's going slower, so still you have that business model and you can work on that.
And how you can personally, Arshia, how you can support, you know, everybody they wanted to invest or they have some multifamily project. Personally, your business, how they can support them.
In terms of, I'm not clear on that. Personally,
It means, you know, I want to connect your business to some needs. Okay. If in a group, you know, in the room, there is some people, they wanted to invest in multifamily or they already some, this kind of the project, how your firm, they can support them.
Obviously, when it comes to financing, I mean, the financing is our expertise, and we deal with different types of lenders, and we can do all those level of financing that we mentioned, from the private bridge financing all the way to CMHC. We can do that, but we have, if you check our website, massmortgagegroup.com, we have a kit over there for those who are the investors on a single family. There are savvy investors, but they are in single family and they want to basically change their portfolio. They want to go to the next level in their investment. So we can basically handhold them. We can do everything from A to Z together with basically the partners that we have. And we take them through the whole process, from purchasing, due diligence, evaluations, analyzing the properties, all the way to financing and even property management and renting it out. So we have partners in all those areas that they can help us, and we can basically help them to get their business done.
So we have room for one more question. So what else is required by CMHC? Do they require the property management experience?
It's one of the requirements, but as long as you can introduce that you have a property manager in your application, you can say, okay, this is the price. If you have the experience, then that's good. You don't have to. But if you don't, that's something that we can work around it, and we can basically introduce a property managers that they're gonna take care of the business for you, and that's satisfy the requirement.
Well, awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you, and thanks for the opportunity again. Thanks for your time.
Before we leave, just want to invite everyone to register for the next webinar that we have next week. It's about real estate investment fundamentals, partnership structures, and tax essentials by Amir Fathalozadeh. So he's an expert in partnership structures, as Arshia mentioned in his presentations. So feel free to scan this QR code and register this webinar. It's one of our monthly webinars that most of the people will join that, and we hope they will be useful for you. If there's any points or comments, we will wrap up this session. Thank you again, Arshia, for your presentation. So lots of good stuff presented. And thank everyone on the screen and in the room for participations. Have a very nice weekend.
Thank you so much. Just a wrap up.
Oh, yeah, sorry about that.
Forget about that.
Let's
Would you back to the screen? Everybody, they can, keep on the screen. If you wanted to show your face is good, could you come here? The command is here,
Yeah.
Yes. Thanks, John.
No.
Ay benden pay çıkıyor.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye bye.